Now, does this really buff the Terminator? You see, when buying a really expensive weapon in Hypixel Skyblock, there's a lot of choices that come with it. One of the main decisions being the ultimate enchant. Now, in many scenarios, it might not just be that there's a best ultimate enchant, but there's just enchantments that are better for different scenarios. Today, we talk about this mighty weapon, and see how we can make the most out of it. You see, I've always been pretty loyal to a Soul Eater Terminator, but there's other options too, including Fatal Tempo and also Duplex. Each enchantment is potentially the best for a certain situation. None of them really overshadow each other. Or do they? Now, before we talk about the weapons, let's talk about the enchantments. We need to understand what they actually do. For instance, Soul Eater 5, your weapon gains 10 times the damage of the latest monster killed. This adds the damage to the end of your next hit. So essentially, your damage will increase based off the last monster that you hit. As for Fatal Tempo, attacking increases your ferocity by 10% per hit, capped at 200% for 3 seconds after your last attack. Now, there's a reason why majority of people don't go higher than Fatal Tempo 1, and that's because this cap is consistent throughout all the Fatal Tempos. Fatal Tempo 5 is also capped at 200%, and when using a Terminator, you're going to reach that cap quite quickly. And then you've got Duplex 5. Shoot an extra arrow dealing 20% of the first arrow's damage. Target's hit takes 1.5% of fire damage for 60 seconds. In other words, this is going to be great for anything with hits phase. In terms of prices, Soul Eater 5 is 26 mil. Fatal Tempo 1 is just shy of 200 mil. And Duplex 5 is, well... your guess is as good as mine. Judging off the Duplex 1 prices, that takes us to 329 mil. It's a little bit confusing, you know. Assuming you can win all Duplex 1s with a buy order, it will cost you 220 mil. Quite the discrepancy. Now, before we go any further, you should subscribe to the channel. Become part of the 24%, there's no reason not to. Also, you should join the Discord server, it's linked in the description of every single video. So first of all, we're going to talk about dungeons. Now, Soul Eater itself is going to be pretty superior in the clear until you're really a higher Catacombs level. As proven now. Now, for those of you that have noticed, yes, this Soul Eater Terminator is slightly better than the other two, considering it has 4 Master Stars, it's Art of War, Power 7. They're all minor little things that probably won't make a big difference in the grand scheme. Okay, I'm just going to do a little test with my Soul Eater Terminator, and you can see this is Master Mode 5. Not really a floor I'm comfortable in, but I'm still able to one-tap everything with pretty much ease. I mean, I'm not going to have a chance of killing this, let's be honest. It died eventually. However, this is Soul Eater, and this is the cheapest of the 3 enchantments, and it is doing the job. Everything's getting pretty much demolished, even though I can't really survive. Now we're going to switch over to our Fatal Tempo term, and honestly, still not too bad. It's still doing the damage. It's still one-tapping. Notably, the damage isn't quite as good as the Soul Eater term, as expected, but it's still getting the job done. Now, as for the Duplex term, once again, it can still one-tap things, but it just doesn't do quite as damage as Fatal Tempo, and nowhere near Soul Eater. But of course, this might change when we actually get to a boss rather than just simply clear, because realistically, it's not really surprising results. However, I mean, I can still pretty much one-tap everything, like it's not really a massive issue, obviously, other than the mini-bosses. So what I'm going to do is we're going to test each term out individually against 3 individual mini-bosses. First off, we're going to go for Soul Eater, then we're going to go for Fatal Tempo, then we're going to go for Duplex. So that will give you a bit more of an accurate sort of representation of what they would feel like against a mini-boss, rather than just clear. Okay, so this is Soul Eater first. I'm going to see how quickly we can shred through it. I assume fairly quickly. Please. Please. I mean, I can survive. Yeah, that was, I guess, fairly quick. Okay, so now we've got our Fatal Tempo term, and the skeleton needs to stop hitting me. We're going to try and shred through this Ancient Archaeologist. Now, this actually does have slightly less health, so it's going to drop slightly quicker regardless. And honestly, that was pretty quick. Even factoring in the fact that, well, it was a bit weaker. I've got a feeling that may have been a little bit quicker. Okay, so for the Duplex term, at the moment, it doesn't have Master Stars, so I feel like to test it on its own, it would be completely unfair. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of a swapping situation. So we're going to shoot a few times with our Fatal Tempo term, switch to our Duplex term. And the only reason we're doing that is to get our ferocity up, so this actually does some damage. So we're going to get our ferocity up with the Fatal Tempo term. I'm going to switch to Duplex. I'm going to see how quick we can shred it. That actually surprised me. I mean, if that had Master Stars on that, that would have been cracked. Okay, so we're now going to test these Terminators out against some dragons. Now, I've not done dragons for quite a while, and we're going to start off with our Soul Eater Terminator, just for a bit of a base comparison. Now, we're using 3 Force Terror and a 1 helmet with an E-Drag. I actually can't see the dragon, but we'll see how much damage we can do to it. Honestly, this heavily depends on if we can actually get proper hits, because sometimes the dragon just tends to not want to play ball. It did 4 million damage. Opinion, the person that I'm playing with, and who lent me the other 2 Terminators, is using the Fatal Tempo and Duplex as a bit of a combination. As you can see, the damage is insane. Okay, so now we're going to test out our Duplex and the Fatal Tempo terms. So the idea is that we get a few hits with our Fatal Tempo to get our ferocity up, but at the moment I can't actually hit it at all. I have this issue a lot with dragons, not going to lie. So we hit it quite a bit, and we switch to our Duplex, and in theory we should do a lot of damage. In theory. In theory. Okay, what damage did I do? Okay, I did a little bit more. I just don't have the technique down at all. Like, I'm honestly a little bit lost when it comes to dragons. Yeah, my comparison probably isn't the best. But if we look at opinion, okay, when he was using the Soul Eater, just Soul Eater, he got 6.4 million damage. The rest of his setup is the same. And then when he's switching between the Duplex and the Fatal Tempo, he did over 10 million. So you can see that's probably more of an accurate representation, other than just a complete skill issue, and yeah. Okay, so we're doing one more dragon, and this time I'm just going to try and hit with Duplex, because I've got a feeling that may have been kind of off-putting me trying to switch. See how this goes instead. Once again, it's around about the same damage. I think it's just a me problem, honestly. Okay, we're now going to test this out against an Endstone Protector. So the idea is that we shoot it a few times with Fatal Tempo, switch to Duplex, and try and do an absolute ton of damage. Should hopefully be working. We'll see how this goes. I've currently got a Tiger Pet on, and a full werewolf set, something that I've actually never used before. And yeah, we shredded it and got 11 million damage, which is kind of cool. I'm not even going to test it, but if we did that with a Soul Eater, the damage would be nowhere near. There's one thing I haven't mentioned in this video, and that's probably the main reason why people buy Duplex terms. And that's for hits phase in Kudra. You see, in Burning Kudra, basically, the damage that you do is irrelevant. It's just the amount of hits you can get on Kudra to try and kill him. Of course, with the Duplex, basically meaning that you shoot an extra arrow, regardless of how much damage that does, it's an extra arrow. So it means that you're able to hit it even more from one click. Having said that, you don't need a Duplex term to do tier 3 Kudra. It's helpful, it's nice, but it kind of limits what you can do if you only have one term. As you saw earlier in the video, in dungeons the Soul Eater term, for me at least at my Catacombs level, in majority of the scenarios is significantly better. Especially throughout the clear, maybe not so much against mini-bosses. Now of course something else to note is the fact that this Terminator isn't exactly the same as the other 2. Like I said, it's got Art of War, it's got Power 7, it's got 4 Master Stars. But hopefully you can appreciate that it's quite difficult to get such like an expensive weapon in exactly the same configuration as another. And also, other than in dungeons, I can see that the Duplex term obviously would have taken a little bit of a hit because it had no Master Stars. The damage will be similar regardless. So what I would say is, if you buy your first Terminator, and you're not a massively high Catacombs level, and if you're not going to be consistently doing tier 3 Kudra, it's kind of a no-brainer to go for a Soul Eater term. At the end of the day, in the future, if you decide you want a different enchantment on there, 25 mil is not a massive price to pay. If you have all the money in the world, then ideally you'd have all 3. Probably the Soul Eater for the clearing dungeons, Duplex for the hit phase and tier 3 Kudras, and against bosses and mini-bosses you can swap between Fatal Tempo and Duplex. So really, I can't say one is better than the other. It really completely depends on the scenario and situation that you're in. Anyway, I hope you all have enjoyed today's video. If you have, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.